Hello YouTube, it is the beginning of the year and this is my first video of the year, so we getting it right on back into the politic talks. I do apologize for uploading the last video late. I thought I already uploaded it, but I was looking back in my saved videos and I had a whole Tulsi Gabbard video that is I just forgot all about because I named it miscellaneous policy. So I apologize for that delay. So y'all will be getting two of these videos back to back. So this video will more likely be uploaded on the 4th, and this the last video that I recorded weeks ago, but I just realized I have it now, will be uploaded on the 3rd. So at least y'all get a double dose of Tulsi Gabbard to start off the new year. So let's get into part 3. We're going to get on into it with climate change. And just in case y'all haven't seen the last two videos, I would leave those down below where we went over her policies regarding domestic violence issues, rejecting corporate donations, civil liberties, campaign finance reform. All of those are in the last two videos that we covered. Now we're going to start off with climate change. So her key points on climate change is Tulsi is a top leader in fighting for urgent action to address climate change. Tulsi aggressive all fossil fuel act has been endorsed by over 400 national, state, and local organizations, including Progressive Democrats of America, the Climate Justice Alliance, Food and Water Watch, People Action Institute, Indigenous Environmental Network, Blue Planet Foundation, and National Nurses United. The OFF Act transitions the U.S. to 100% clean and renewable energy by 2035 and includes provisions to stimulate the economy and transition workers to jobs in the renewable energy sector. Okay. And then here she is with legislation HR 3671, which is the Off Fossil Fuels Act, HR 5895, Energy and Water Legislative Branch and Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Act. Tulsi votes no on bill to gut the Clean Air Act. And then she has a statement video which says, I support the carbon neutrality goals of the Green New Deal and the awareness it has brought across the country on the critical issues of energy independence and the climate crisis. However, I do not support leaving the door open to nuclear power unless and until there is permanent solution to the problem of nuclear waste. I believe we need to invest in 100% renewable and safe energy sources like wind, solar, and geothermal. I also support a ban on fracking, ending the $26 billion annual in fossil fuel subsidies, as well as all subsidies or waivers to the nuclear power industry, which should itself be completely responsible for paying for its own insurance and paying the long-term costs for safe storage of nuclear waste over centuries. I will also work to provide other incentives for a renewable energy economy. And then she goes on to further state, we must pass the OFF Act to protect our people and our planet. We must make our energy system with 100% renewable energy by passing the OFF Act. The U.S. must lead the world in combating climate change. Fossil fuel executives and their lobbyists are not the ones being impacted by climate change. The most vulnerable people in our society are. And then it leads you to a Twitter link. And then she got over a dozen more links. Once again, Tulsi Gabbard is the queen of receipts, and she got plenty of links for y'all to check out on her platform. So that is everything pretty much in a nutshell on that. So her next one is coral reefs. By her being from Hawaii, I expect this one to probably be quite in-depth and lengthy. Yep, it's... well, no, it ain't that lengthy. Tulsi Gabbard on coral reefs and oceans. Key points. Hawaii is home to 410,000 acres of living coral reef in the main islands alone, more than the landmass of Oahu. Tulsi recognizes the need to protect these precious natural ecosystems of the ocean. Once again, I speak 4 languages. Spanish is not one of them, so I apologize for any Spanish errors. To my Spanish-speaking people, y'all correct me down in the comments box below. Tulsi was a participant and speaker of March for the Ocean. The Coral Reef Conservation Reauthorization Act, which is H.R. 5996, would improve the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is NOAA for short, Coral Reef Program, and expand federal grant making for local coral reef projects, community-based coral reef conservation planning, and scientific research on coral reefs. Tulsi has received the Ocean of Possibilities Award for her ocean conservation work. And then it goes to name off HR 2588, oxybenzone and oxytazonate impact study act of 2019, HR 2587 reef safety act of 2019, HR 5996 coral reef conservation reauthorization act of 2018, HR 4811 coral reef sustainability through innovation act of 2016. And then it goes to say Tulsi helps attain $1.5 million in grants from NOAA for coral reef protection. And then there are your statement videos for that. Oh, we just going just right on through this today. It's only 3 for this one, y'all. I mean 9 points for this one, y'all. Now the longest video is going to be video 4 in these series, because it's like 13 policies we got to go over. Just in case y'all are not familiar with my other 2 videos, I stated that Tulsi Gabbard has a total of 42 policies on her platform. So we decided to break it down into 7 different videos so it won't be like 4 or 5 hours long. Instead, you will have some videos that are like an hour long, some videos 40 minutes. This one might only be like 20 minutes long. Coral reefs and oceans. So next we got DAPA. Well, I feel like I already went over that one before. So Tulsi Gabbard on DAPA. As a lifelong environmentalist and protector of water, Tulsi has strongly stood with the DAPA water protectors, the sole drinking water supply of the Sioux tribe, along with the drinking water of 17 million Americans downstream, stands to permanently contaminate by the DAPA. Since 1995, more than 2,000 significant accidents have occurred involving oil and petroleum pipelines. More likely, over 90% of that was post 2016 when they really started, doing that pipeline down in North Dakota going into South Dakota. Oh, and once again, very short, sweet, simple, to the point. It goes right into her statement videos, which says DAPA is a threat to essential water resources and we must protect the water. Water is life. And then it goes into naming off several more items as well, along with links to go to them. And I think everybody's been vocal for the most part on, in regards to DAPA and the Dakota Access Pipeline. I can't think of nobody who hasn't been vocal on the Democratic side, well, except for Joe Biden. But I already told y'all he's show enough establishment. I don't see anybody really looking favorable to it. But surprisingly, right now the polls have him looking the most favorable. But y'all know how them polls can be skewed. They're like, they ain't taking in people like me. And also, not one vote has been cast. But when it comes to issues like this, Bernie Sanders just... not Bernie Sanders, but Joe Biden just... But everybody else has definitely made mention of, the Dakota Access Pipeline. I think in Marion Williamson's policy, that is also included as far as atonement and reparations, because not only does she propose reparations for Black Americans, but also additional reparations be paid out for the atrocities that has continue to happen to Native Americans, such as, you know, what happened with the Dakota Access Pipeline going through the precious Sioux Tribe River, along with Elizabeth Warren. So several key players have touched on this. So Tulsi Gabbard got a little bit of competition in regards to this, but it's nice to see that she has mentioned it nonetheless. So next is we got drinking water and watersheds. Tulsi recognizes that water is life and has been fighting for clean water since her teen years. Tulsi has personally visited Flint, Michigan, and fought for federal legislation to address the drinking water crisis naturally. See also Dapple and Red Hill. Okay, we just went over that, so we basically got her stance on Dapple. She's pretty much up there with Marion Williamson and Elizabeth Warren when it comes to Dapple. Tulsi has spoken to protect Bristol Bay, Alaska from the Pebble Mine project. And then her legislations include H.R. 1673, water affordability, transparency, equity, and reliability. Oh, I like it how they actually used the word water and made a phrase of words out of it. Okay. Which would authorize $35 billion per year to improve drinking water and wastewater services and create 700,000 to 945,000 jobs. H.R. 5609, Water Affordability, Transparency, Equity, and Rehabilitation Act of 2018. H.R. 8, Water Development Resources Act to help the people of Flint, Michigan with their water crisis. Also providing $199 million for Hawaii Alai watershed. Once again, my Spanish-speaking people, correct me if I was wrong. H.R. 3275, Water and Energy Sustainability through Technology Act to improve water sustainability in Hawaii and across the country. Tulsi helped attain $3 million federal funding to aid drinking water infrastructure in Pune regions of Hawaii. Okay, she talks the talks and walks the walk. Tulsi also helped attain $20 million clean water research grant for, is that Utah? I'm assuming that's the abbreviation for it, UH. Tulsi also secured $6.5 million for groundwater pollution protection programs in Hawaii, rural communities nationwide. And then here are the statement videos down below, along with Twitter link receipts, Facebook link receipts, and your tertiary links to Huffington Post. And then here's another one as well. So, okay. It's safe to say she's among the best when it comes to the topic of water conservation. I haven't heard nobody else mention about water conservation in a way that she has. Now, maybe Tom Steyer, as far as what I've heard him vocally. I haven't had a chance to look at his platform because, you know, honestly, I'm going to be biased. I don't think he has a chance in hell of winning, nor should he, because, you know, I want a president that's really multi-faceted on issues, that is not just a one-trick pony, and I feel like that's the only thing he talks about. So he might be up there with talking key points like this, but Tulsi Gabbard is overall more well-rounded than me than Tom Steyer. But outside of Tom Steyer, it's safe to say she's been the most consistent with talking about this. Now, Miss Asian American, see, I done forgot her name just that quick because she wasn't never relevant to me in the first place, but Miss Kamala Harris. Kamala, another Asian person that was running for president under the guise of blackface, honey, catch. But she had a policy, and it was targeted towards, you know, it was her black agenda, and it went to talk about the pipelines, and she wanted to invest $250 billion into the redistribution of, you know, getting our old pipelines together. We have pipelines that are still like 90 some years old. We got pipelines that are, you know, contaminated with lead, and I thought it was very admirable of you know, Kamala to propose that. It was quite late. I don't know why she took the September to propose that, you know. And then it's like you not having a history of doing this compared to Tulsi. I would employ Tulsi to go look at Kamala's platform and go take that, because I would believe, Tulsi would be more sincere with, propelling that, as opposed to Kamala, because, no, Kamala wasn't a factor when she was in the race, and she definitely not a factor now that she's out the race. So I would also employ Tulsi to go ahead and pick up that point from Kamala Harris's platform. That would be a great addition to this right here, to go ahead and get the pipelines and stuff fixed up as well. And I think Tulsi will be on board for that, especially considering, her extensive, providing $199 million for Hawaii watersheds and $6.5 million for groundwater pollution. So I think she would definitely be on board with that idea. So then you got the environment in general. And I see that there's several points in here, so how I'm gonna do this, y'all? Do I want to go on every point? I might as well, since this video looked like it was going to be short. We'll just tackle every point in the environment section. See, I did not know that this had multiple points in here like this, so we'll go ahead and just tackle everything we haven't. We already discussed DAPA, the coral reefs. I'm trying to see if we already talked about climate change. Let me see. Don't look like we talked about climate change from my... No, wait a minute. Yeah, we done talked about climate change. Okay, so we didn't talk about the red hills. So we talked about DAPA, drinking water, coral reefs, climate change. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do this since it's only 2 points. I was making sure I didn't have to do a separate video, y'all. So Tulsi Gabbard on the environment. Tulsi is a lifelong environmentalist who has been an activist on the environment since she was a... Okay, y'all. I could have sworn I just darn on read this statement. Where did I went wrong, y'all? Climate change. Is some of her stuff repeating itself, y'all? Okay. Now I see what's going on. Now, some of her statements are repeating itself, but ultimately this is a different one, because I know I read that exact same statement earlier. I know I wasn't losing my mind, but okay. Tulsi is a lifelong environmentalist who has been an activist on the environment since she was a teenager, traveling to schools across Hawaii to educate students on the importance of watersheds. Tulsi's All Fossil Fuel Act is groundbreaking legislation that has been endorsed by over 400 organizations. Tulsi has pushed for legislation and funding to protect our oceans and reefs, water infrastructure, national parks, and drinking water and aquifers, to name a few of her efforts. Tulsi strongly opposed the newly elected Trump administration's witch hunt request for individual names of the Department of Energy. Tulsi also opposes the Pebble Mine project in Alaska. See also info on climate change, coral reefs and oceans, drinking water and watersheds, Red Hill, and DAPA. Okay, so some of her stuff literally repeats itself verbatim, because y'all see how certain sentences are the exact that we just went over earlier. Made me think I was darn gone. I clicked on something twice. And then it goes into talking about legislation 3671, All Fossil Fuels for a Better Future, the OFF Act, HR 4932, Women in Climate Change Act of 2018, HR 3186, Every Kid Outdoors Act to increase access to public lands, HR 3380, Pesticides Protection Act to ban chlorifos, a harmful pesticide that has been linked to damaging and often irreversible health outcomes in workers, pregnant women, and children. HR 502 to permanently reauthorize the Land and Water Conservation Fund. HR 3275, Water and Energy Sustainability Breakthrough Technology Act. And then she has her statement videos located down below, which are about, I would say, about 20 to 25. Then we got the Red Hills. Now this is a new one on me. I haven't heard of the Red Hills. Clean up Red Hills. Red Hill rust runs deep. Okay, so I guess this also has something to do with water. Honey, Tulsi Gabbard is the queen of darn water conservation. Now she got several policies really going in about this water. Like I said, the only person I've heard mention this more in detail is Tom Steyer, and that's just verbally. But policy-wise, I think Tulsi might got everybody beat. For 70 years, the Navy has stored fuel in Red Hills, just 100 feet away from Oahu's primary drinking water supply, an aquifer that serves over 400,000 people. Tulsi has been aggressive in working to address the problem with the Red Hill fuel storage leak. The facility has leaked more than 30 times within the last leak occurring in 2014. And then she has legislation that she proposed, H.R. 1202, Red Hill Oversight and Environmental Protection Act. And then she got her links down below on that. Okay, now don't y'all judge me. I don't know every one of the tribes now. Is this a Native American tribe? Because they look like a bunch of white people. And I'm just saying, y'all. Now, I understand some of our natives are a little bit more fairer than others. However, they look more like I hate to say it, they look more like the Elizabeth Warren type of Native Americans. So, is this a Native American? Because it said the Red Hill, and it's let me Google search Red Hills real quick, because I don't want to sound dumb on this. I know if you don't know nothing, the best thing to do in this technology age is the Google search it. So that's what I'm going to do real quick. I'm darn going to ask y'all like this is a live stream or something. So excuse me as I darn going to educate myself. Red Hills. What are the Red Hills? The Red Hills, or Tallahassee Hills, is a region of gently rolling hills in the southeastern United States. Is a geographical region. Okay. And then I see Kansas. I don't see nothing in regards to a Native American tribe. So I'm just assuming that this is a region of people within the Red Hill area, because it doesn't mention anything about Native Americans. Let me see. Red Hill tribe. It doesn't pull up anything for Red Hill tribe, so okay. I just had to make sure, y'all. I ain't want to piss off the Native American community if this was indeed some Native Americans that I wasn't familiar with, honey. You know, it about sound like, you know, I'm going to do a little story time real quick. I did a video about a black person who's a rapper by the name of Waka Flocka, and he was denying his darn on black heritage, talking about, you know, he was everything other than black. Now, mind you, this person has about 4B, 4C texture hair that's in dreadlocks, full lips that are 3 times my size, wide nose, very unambiguously African. His mother, you know, who everybody knows is Aunt Deb, light-skinned woman, but undeniably African in looks, honey. Like, you can look and tell she's undeniably African. But he was claiming everything from German to red-tailed Indian. That's what this reminds me of. It just gave me a flashback to when I did that video. And I was like, what the hell is red-tailed Indian? Like, now, you know me, I don't know too many tribes outside of my, you know, maternal tribe of Eastern Band Cherokee. You know, I know of the Cheyenne, I know of the Taino, I know of the Arawak, I know of the Powhatan tribes. And you know, it's something that I might not be familiar with off the top of my head, but I knew red tail was just, I was like, no, I ain't heard of no red tail. And sure enough, he was darn on front. Now, I already knew he wasn't darn on native, full-blooded native, honey. It's like, come on now. We know your mother. We know. What are you trying to do, Waka Flop? But that's what that reminded me of, looking at these people. So I wanted to make sure, you know, I wasn't disrespecting no Native Americans, even if they did, you know, once again, look more like Elizabeth Warren. So, moving on. I know that was so random, y'all, but that just gave me a flashback to darn Waka Flocka trying to pretend that he's Native American and white, even though he looks darn blacker than me. But next policy is farming and food. So farming and food security. Tulsi advocates for small farmers, food self-sufficiency, organic agriculture, and sustainable agricultural systems that are both profitable for farmers and good for the environment. Tulsi supports regenerative architecture to actively rebuild one of our most valuable national resources, our farmland. Tulsi strongly supports food self-sufficiency, including working together to build food aggregation and distribution hubs that serve our farmers, distributors, and local communities to promote self-sufficiency. Tulsi also supports a permanent home for farmers markets, incubator farms, farm to school, and other educational programs, and agritourism. Tulsi has been recognized as a top national advocate for food policy by Food Policy Action. Okay, come on through, Miss Tulsi. And then Tulsi has strongly advocated for the legalization. I can't speak this new year, y'all. Tulsi has strongly advocated for the legalization of hemp production for profitable, sustainable agricultural development. I didn't know there was a restriction on hemp. I know, you know, hemp is the cousin of marijuana, but I didn't know that there was, regulations on hemp itself, especially since it doesn't have THC. But then you got her legislations, of course, which is H.R. 2436, Organic Agricultural Research Act of 2017, H.R. 1587 to stop the overuse of antibiotics for livestock, H.R. 113 to safeguard American Food Exports Act, H.R. 3530 Industrial Hemp Farming Act, H.R. 2 Tulsi voted no on bill that hurts small farmers and favors corporate agro-businesses. And then it goes down below to say Tulsi helped attain $1.6 million in funding for organic farm facility in Wanene. H.R. 230 banned toxic pesticides Act of 2019. H.R. 6631 banned nerve agents in our food Act of 2018. And then once again, you have your statement videos to look over down below. Next is GMO labeling. Once again, y'all, this is the first video of the new year, y'all. Y'all got to give me some time to get back into the swing of things. So our key points here: fighting for a sensible, transparent food policy has been one of Tulsi's key priorities in Congress. Tulsi has led the fight for GMO labeling, recognizing consumers have the right to know how their food is produced. Tulsi also helped lead the congressional fight to oppose the DARK Act and other misleading bills and compromise food transparency. Tulsi has been recognized as a top advocate for improving our nation's food systems by Food Policy Action. Then it goes into HR 913, Genetically Engineered Food Right to Know Act, which would require genetically engineered whole and processed foods to be clearly labeled. HR 2152, Tulsi voted no on DARK, which is Deny Americans Right to Know Act. HR 933, Tulsi voted no on Monsanto Protection Act, which would have prevented courts from stopping the sale and planting of GMO products with health risks. And then, of course, she has her statement videos down below. Okay, this is very similar to what Marion Williamson has been proposing. Not to the extent of Marion Williamson. I still think Marion Williamson got more of the passion when it comes to it. Although, no, I shouldn't say that, because she's actually walked the walk. She's actually a House of Representatives and has been pushing for. So I would say both of them have the passion, but I feel like the policies, Marion Williamson is just a tad bit stronger on trying to, because she just doesn't go as far as to, propose legislation. She's also holding the institutions accountable at the source. It's like, let's not stop, treating the victim, which is, whatever the FDA and stuff put out there for where you have to put policies to try to prevent it. But let's also hold them accountable. That's where I get Marion Williamson is at. Marion Williamson is very good at, let's identify the source of the problem and eradicate it from there. Let's do, full on change. Versus Tulsi is like right at the beginning. So both of them are good. Marion in this sense, I just feel is a little bit more further. Now, even though Tulsi got the experience, which is very admirable, definitely commend her for what all she has done. Going forward, it's a close call. I would ultimately be good with either one of them, but in this sense, I was more leaning towards Marion Williamson on this than Tulsi Gabbard. But not by much. Like I said, Tulsi is doing good by, holding, by holding them accountable to a certain extent, by, making sure certain policies such as the DARK Act don't pass. But one thing I haven't heard her mention, which Marion Williamson has, is once again holding the actual, Food and Drug Administration accountable for their actions. I haven't heard Tulsi mention that yet. But she did. But once again, she has spot for sensibility, transparency, and stuff. But not actually, if you don't make a change, we're willing to darn gonna get you out of there. That's where I feel Marion Williamson is at. Versus Tulsi is willing to keep going back and forth with them. Marion Williamson is borderline revolutionary. Like, let's change the whole system up. So I think both of them would do good by. Like, if either one of them get the ticket, I would want the other one to be in the cabinet somewhere. Like, honey, Tulsi, you win the ticket, put Marion in your cabinet and vice versa. Because both of them, it's not a competition with them. It's like both of them are similar, where I would like for them to be better off together versus divided. It's not like, Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders, where it's like it's no compatibility at all. I can't see Joe Biden under a cabinet with Bernie and vice versa. But with Tulsi and Marion Williamson, I can see a cabinet in either position with those two ladies. So next is we got Hawaii. Oh, and this got several points. So let me go ahead and write this down. We'll just go ahead and make that another video. And of course, we already went over, let me see, we went over the Red Hills. See, she got several, policies that overlap each other. So I got to make a note not to include the Red Hills when I do this video on Hawaii. So let me draw an arrow down here. And then note, discuss every policy Except Red Hill. So moving on from that, then we got Native Hawaiian issues. So y'all look out for that to be in a separate video as well. So honey, y'all Tulsi fans, honey, y'all, it's about like Andrew Yang. I thought I was gonna just do 7 videos. Now it's looking like I'm up to like what, video number 9. I might end up doing like 12 videos on Tulsi Gabbard when it's all said and done with. Let me make sure that this don't have no multiple policies in here. Okay, it's just a policy by itself. Okay, so last video. I'm at last point, and then we're gonna close it on out for now. So Tulsi Gabbard on Native Hawaiian issues. Between her 2 tours of duty in the Middle East, Tulsi served in the U.S. Senate as a legislative aide to Senator Daniel Akake, who was the first Native Hawaiian elected to the United States Congress. Tulsi believes that the Native Hawaiians as a people should be empowered to determine their own future and what kind of relationship they choose to have with the U.S. federal government. Tulsi rightly points out that many people fail to recognize Native Hawaiians as indigenous people, which creates obstacles to provide them with proper services and programs. I can see the point in that. And let me go back to, she said Tulsi served in the U.S. Senate as a legislative aide. Okay, I would love to know what age, because I know Hawaii became a state in 1950. And she's saying she served for the first Native Hawaiian elected to Congress. That gives me pause, because it's like if Hawaii became a state in 1950, and you know Tulsi Gabbard is the second youngest person running for Congress, that means ideally at the earliest she served this person during maybe the 1990s. So you telling me it took over 4 decades for us to get the first Hawaiian person as a member of Congress? Like, really? Is that what I'm hearing from this statement? Because once again, Hawaii became a state in 1950. Tulsi Gabbard is only like 38 years old, but she served in the U.S. Senate as a legislative aide to Senator Daniel Akaki, who was the first Native Hawaiian elected to the United States Congress. Let me go ahead and do some Google search to see when was he elected, because maybe he was elected earlier on, and she served him after, he's been in there some time. Because I hate to think that the first Hawaiian had to wait until, the 90s to get in there. Senator Daniel Oh my God. Oh Lord. See, my suspicions was right. See, I was spot on. It says he served from 1990 to 2013. Oh my goodness. So wait a minute. Why, Hawaiian people, tell me, why did it take y'all 40 years to have the first senator as a representative? I need some answers to that. Now, this is stuff they don't teach us in darn school, so don't blame no ignorance on me. I was an A+ student in darn history. So when I ask these questions, it's not from a lack of darn education of me sleeping in school. It's just this was omitted out of our history books. Now, they didn't teach us about Hawaii history in school. And like I said, I'm an A+ student, and this is why I am puzzled in regards to this. Because number one, we don't learn about Hawaii in general. Hawaiian people, we know some of them are indigenous, but not all. So when she says Tulsi rightly points out that many people fail to recognize Native Hawaiians as indigenous people, which creates obstacles to providing them with proper services and programs. See, that's a fallacy, and the reason why that's a fallacy is because, yes, you do have some indigenous people there of Hawaii from the original areas, but we have to realize that Hawaiians is not everybody, because hell, I can been born on Hawaii and be a native Hawaiian, because now y'all have become a state. And here's where the multifaceted comes in, because Hawaii is now a state that used to be an independent territory that still has the native people that were the original people of there. But the problem is, with it becoming a state and so many people now being able to go over there and now claim state citizenship and all of that and have children over there, they are technically now considered Native Hawaiians as far as the state is concerned. They are a Hawaiian, but that is not to be confused with the indigenous people of Hawaii, if that makes sense. It's just like with North Carolina. You have the Lumbee Indians, you have the Cherokee Indians, and you have the Tuscarorean Indians. You have obviously black people that is in North Carolina. You have white people, you have Hispanic people, but not everybody in North Carolina belongs to one of those three tribes of Native Americans. So that's where it gets sort of convoluted, because people think of Hawaii as the 50th continental United States. We understand that there are, brown skinned people there. Hell, it's the most concentrated, diverse group of brown skinned people out of all the 50 continental United States. But that is not to be confused with everybody should be, indigenous, because they're not. You have full black people in Hawaii, you have full white people in Hawaii, full Asian people and Hispanic people in Hawaii. So it's sort of confusing. I think the ones who are legitimately Native American, they should be recognized. I don't necessarily know what the tribe name is, but if they're just being called Native Hawaiians, I can understand where the confusion lies, because Hawaiian can be used interchangeably with anybody who's born in the state of Hawaii, versus when you're trying to portray Hawaiian people who are indigenous, it's almost like Black Americans, because people who think of Black Americans, you're thinking of anybody born in America that's black. And the problem is, you got West Indian people here, you got African people here, first generations of those groups that are here that do not descend from, American chattel slavery in America, but they get labeled African American or, black just because they're here. And it gets confusing, because you don't distinguish me from like Pt3 Nyong'o, or I'm trying to think somebody who's black who's from the islands. Safari Samuels, he's from Jamaica, but since he's now here in America, Rihanna, she's here in America, they get grouped in as African American, but Rihanna is Bayesian. She is West Indian, born in Barbados. Safari, he is Jamaican. Same thing with Spice, she's Jamaican, but sometimes they get grouped in as black people here, and that's where the confusion lies. So I think it's the same thing with Hawaiian people. So what they need to do is come up with a unique, name for the indigenous people there to separate them. Like with us, we still trying to get the name together. I just identify myself as a Black American, but the other terminology is ADOS, foundational Black American, descendant of African slaves. Those are the terminologies specifically describing a black person that is born here, who has generational lineage that links back to the African slave trade. Versus President Barack Obama, he gets labeled African American, but his father, who is black, is Kenyan, directly from the continent, not a descendant of American slaves. So I hope that makes sense with y'all, and because I wanted to make that correlation to show how Native Hawaiians who are indigenous Indians are getting confused. Because if you're calling yourself Native Hawaiian, it's just like with foreign black people calling themselves African American. It's like, no, you do not descend from American descendants of slaves. You are directly from the West Indies or Africa, but since you are black, you're being viewed as Black Americans. So that's where the confusion comes in on both sides. So that's what I think is what's happening with the indigenous Indians. So the ones who need to be identified as such, they definitely need to be identified, but not everybody in Hawaii needs to be recognized as a Native American. That's just like saying everybody in North Carolina needs to be recognized in one of the 3 tribes, or everybody in Puerto Rico is of Taino descent. No, you might have 2% or 1% or whatever, but that's not to be equivalent to somebody who's fully indigenous, that is 50+%, indigenous Taino Indian. Same thing with Mexico. Mexico, you have the what's the ones that down in Mexico? I can't think of it right now. Oh, it was on the top of my head. I think it starts with an A. But you got the Mexico, Native Americans. But you have some that are actually more white, and then some that are Afro-Latina, that are black, who, once again, the Atlantic slave trade. Of course, they might have some Native in there, but not as high as somebody who is like 90% Native American. Because you have, Mexican Native Americans who have took Ancestry, and they show that they're 99%, 80%. Then you have Afro-Latinos who are 6%. Then you got mestizos who take it, there might be 10 or 15%. So that's my thoughts on that. And then, of course, she has H.R. 558 to provide federal economic development assistance for Native American communities through the Native American Challenge demonstration project. H.R. 5, Tulsi led the passage of amendment to reauthorize the Native Hawaiian Education Act. Also helped attain $8.7 million in funding for Hawaii State Department of Hawaiian Homelands through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to build affordable homes, make renovations, and provide housing support for Native Hawaiian families. Tulsi fought to reintroduce and successfully pass the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act, NAHASDA for short, which has empowered more than 1,400 low-income families in Hawaii over the past, let me scroll down, 2 decades, along with Native communities across the country. Tulsi also introduced and successfully passed an amendment to provide an additional $1 million to Native American Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFI. The amendment will provide additional awards to organizations that make credit, capital, and other essential financial services available to underserved and impoverished Native communities. Tulsi fought for $1 million federal funding to help increase availability, affordability, and improve the quality of child care programs for Native Hawaiian families through Maui Family Support Services. Tulsi denounced Republican efforts to exclude Native Hawaiians from Native housing legislation. Once again, I can't really fault those Republicans, because I'm trying to then figure out, once again, Tulsi, who are you considering to be Native American? Now, I know that you're from Hawaii, and the people told, because I didn't know what Tulsi was. I knew she wasn't white, like she wasn't full on, Caucasian. So I asked y'all what Tulsi was, and y'all told me she was Samoan, and I fact checked, and she's indeed Samoan. And Samoan people, from what I'm seeing, is of Asian descent. Now, granted that Native Americans who derive from the Bering Strait from Asia East, all of them have a derivative of Asian in them, but Samoan people are actually Asian people in general. Like, they're not Native American per se, if that makes sense. Like when you take a test, you see that it's like 95% Native, 5% Asian. But when you take it and you come up Samoan or Pacific Islander, it just tells you you're a Pacific Islander or or Samoan or whatever. And it shows that you descend directly from the Asia. So does those people also qualify as Native? Now, I would say that they do if they are indeed the first inhabitants of Hawaii. So y'all tell me, is the Samoan tribe like an actual indigenous group just like the Pacific Islanders. And if that's the case, yes, they definitely deserve funding. But once again, who was she classifying as Native Hawaiian? Because once again, when you use the term Hawaiian then gets convoluted, because then you're thinking about the whole state, and not everybody in the state of Hawaii is, indigenous. You have black people, you have white people, you have Asian people who live in Hawaii. So once again, I need to see that policy that they denied, to see who was being classified as Native American. Because you can't say that anybody who's Hawaiian is Native American. That's not how Native American DNA works, honey. So I can't necessarily fault them Republicans on that if that was the case. But then she goes on with her statement videos, which are down below. And if anybody is familiar with that case, though, y'all definitely, especially my Native American people, y'all leave that down in the description box. I ain't wanting to sound harsh, but I'm just being factual. Like, not everybody can claim, like, once again, I descend from Native American ancestry, but obviously I'm dominantly black, and, I don't feel like I should, qualify compared to some of my family members who are like 40-50% Native American. Y'all see my family is very mixed race. Some are full white, some are full black, like myself, which is over 70%, in my case 80+%. And once again, you have my other side, which is like 40% Native American, 60% Native American, 55% Native American. I don't think I belong in the same category. Is that wrong for me to say that? Now, granted, I still recognize the cultural and the history and all that, but I believe not everybody can, be a part of the, like, like we as black people say, not everybody can be part of the cookout just because you have a sprinkle of black. I don't believe everybody should be invited to the Native American cookout if you only have a sprinkle of, Native, especially if you are not even culturally of the thing, because not everybody in Hawaii practice the culture like that. Not from what I've seen, not everybody practices in the indigenous practice either. So, but once again, my Hawaiian people, y'all shout out in the comment section. My Native Americans, y'all shout out. Honey, she definitely got y'all back on this one, honey. Once again, she walks the walk and talk the talk. She wasn't just darn on putting on the front to get into the school like they say some other folks were doing. And she wasn't just putting out a policy for Native American people because she done got that backlash for people calling her out for being a $5 Indian. Shout out to Elizabeth Warren, honey. So, yeah, she definitely darn gonna whoop the Elizabeth's behind in regards to the Native American policies. I think the natives are riding out with Tulsi as opposed to darn gone Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth, she got her reparations plan over there for, Native Americans. But I don't think it comes off as sincere compared to somebody who obviously has a lifelong history of providing that she has indeed been for the Native American people as an Asian American. Now, once again, does she also claim herself to be indigenous? I don't know how that goes with Samoan people. Y'all leave that down below. And on that note, I think that ends this out. Yep, that's the last policy point. We're going to save Hawaii for another video. Matter of fact, that'll be the next video that I do before I get into the fourth one, because the fourth one is very long, and I actually have another job. As a matter of fact, I got 3 job interviews to get to tomorrow and Saturday. Yeah, between tomorrow and Saturday, I got 3 job interviews, so I'm not going to do the fourth one tomorrow, which covers 13 policies. Instead, I will do the Hawaii policy, which discusses everything but the red hills. And that's because we already went over the red hills in this video right here. And I thought this video was only going to be a half hour. Turned out it was an hour within itself anyway, because I ain't know I was going to have to. But that's how it goes with these videos. And that's why I always do the timestamps, because sure enough, these candidates always throw a curveball in here, and it makes me have to go in detail over a policy. Y'all see how I was just breezing through the first couple policies, and I was thinking that this video might only be 20-30 minutes long. Sure enough, we get on this type of topic, I end up having to break it down in very intricate detail. But that's why y'all love me, and y'all haven't complained about these videos yet. So I want to keep it on rolling. So y'all leave y'all thoughts down below. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will be back soon with more videos. Look out for them. Make sure the notification bell is on so y'all will be tuned in as soon as the video drops. So see y'all soon.